Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Just Friends with Abdullah. I appreciate you giving me some of your time so you can watch my content. If you like the content overall on the channel, please subscribe, like the videos that you're seeing. And today we got a juicy, interesting topic that has been dwelling on me for quite some time. I've been thinking about it really. I've been kind of like really sitting with myself and figuring out what kind of topics I want to talk about. And today's topic, I think, is something that a lot of people generally in life go through and go through more than we imagine. So, as you guys know, expectations are probably one of the biggest things we as people put on ourselves and other people whenever we go through any situation in life. What I'm trying to say, or what I mean by that, is that expectations are probably one of the most important aspects of how we value somebody and how we measure that value. So, specifically, this topic has been weighing on my mind for quite some time. And, when I try to do my research on this channel, I try to find topics that relate to the average person, the day-to-day person, what regular people go through every day in life, and not just generally. I don't want to really classify people as certain classes, but what I'm trying to say is what everybody, most likely what everybody in life goes through in various degrees. And one of the things that I realized that everybody probably goes through is the pandemic or epidemic of expectation. What do I mean by that? So basically, we as people, we place expectations on ourselves and we place it on others in almost all situations in life. And it doesn't just happen once or twice in our lives, it happens a lot. I don't want to say every single day, but it happens quite often. And these expectations really shape our perception of people and how we perceive those people and their impact in our lives. We simply expect those expectations that we place on others to be fulfilled. And that's the reason we set those expectations, because we want them to be achieved. We believe those people that we have placed our trust into are capable of achieving those expectations. But what tends to happen, and actually what tends to happen more often than not, is those expectations tend to be uh, turn out to be a disappointment in most cases. It basically fails us, and we don't really take that into account. And what's even more scary, in a sense, is that we don't take into account the emotional damage that those failed expectations cause on us. So, the title of the video or the title of the topic I'm talking about is that expectations are always going to be our downfall, or expectations are probably one of our biggest downfalls as people. That's because when we expect from someone something, we expect them to achieve it, like I said. But when they don't achieve it, and when they don't reach those milestones or whatever that we expect them to do, we are disappointed, we are hurt, we are, you know, damaged in a way, if it's somebody that we really care for and we trust and we really had high expectations of. So, if you guys noticed with expectations, when they are never fulfilled, the reaction tends to be quite aggressive, generally speaking. The reaction tends to be quite, first of all, reactionary, because it's an emotional attachment that we place on people, but it also turns into an aggressive situation because the shock and the disappointment, it takes over us, it overwhelms us in those situations. We don't anticipate the person that can do that to us, and we are, in a sense, in disbelief. We don't really understand what happened, and we cannot calculate and put it in our minds why that person has failed to meet our expectations. But before I kind of talk about the psychological aspect of why we place expectations, what are the probably long short-term and long-term consequences, I'd like to explain a little bit what are expectations and what do they stand for. In simple terms, expectations are beliefs that are set upon a person or on ourselves based on certain personal experiences, historical facts, where we predict a likely outcome for the future. That's in the simple definition. That's our expectation. Our expectation is when we place an outcome on somebody or on ourselves based on previous experiences, and it's our belief that it will likely happen in the future because of those, previous experiences, data, whatever we have inputted to come up with that, expectation theory. I would say I call it a theory because it hasn't been fulfilled, but we believe it will be likely. However, when you place expectations on people, especially close people to you, whether they're friends, family, loved ones, whoever, you are placing, in a sense, a burden on their shoulders because, first of all, you put yourself at risk. You don't know if those people are able to fulfill it. You hope they are able to fulfill it, and that's why you place the expectation. But you also put yourself in a position that they may not be able to fulfill. And when they are not able to fulfill that, it obviously, aggressively hits you in the face. Whether it is an emotional breakdown or disappointment, as I said, or even, sadness, or even in some extreme cases, separation, cutting off from that friend, cutting off from that partner, or whoever it is. That's what actually expectations can do. And I would say, in a moderate sense, a lot of people would say that the relationship will never be the same after a person fails to meet someone's expectations in many aspects. I just want to be clear about something very important here, is that expectations most likely will always end up hurting you. Why? When you expect something from others, you um you are basically you let the situation dictate itself to have uncontrollable outcomes, meaning that you make an assessment about a person, and you decide that that person is worthy of that expectation. What you don't realize is that your assessment of that person is only your assessment, which means you could be wrong, which means you could be facing disappointment and sadness based on the person not fulfilling that expectation. Um, and I just want to be clear about something here. In this segment, or in this video, I want to focus on our expectations on others, not on ourselves, uh, because I think it's a little different on the things that you expect from yourself versus others. Because when it comes to yourself, it's more of a controllable outcome, in a sense, because you can actually control what you expect of yourself and if you can fulfill it. Whereas when it comes to others, it's a much harder proposition. Reason being is that you cannot control other people's behaviors and how they read the situation and their assessment overall. What people don't even realize is that also, when you're placing expectation on somebody, it's because you have built a certain image in your mind of them. And of course, that image that you've built is built with, experience, interaction, years of trust, whatever you want to call it. So you're more than likely willing to, let your mind think of expecting things from them. But then obviously, when you're hit with reality, it comes very sudden. And this is what I think where people really fail to understand. Nobody owes anyone anything. Okay? No person on this earth owes anyone anything. All right? Except probably your parents, because they birthed you. This is what I think, at least. But generally speaking, nobody owes anyone anything. Human beings aren't transcendent creatures. They aren't infallible, meaning that they're prone to making mistakes, they're prone to making bad judgment, bad assessments, and that will never stop. Okay? This basically means that you will have situations where you will always be, or the person will always make, assessments that will probably fail you or will not meet your expectation. And that's something you have to realize and you have to accept with the people that you're interacting with. And you need to keep that in mind. Just because somebody was nice to you multiple times doesn't mean they're going to be nice to you again. Just because somebody was willing to help you once or twice doesn't mean they're going to help you the third time. You see the trend? This idea that people have to be consistent in a way with you because this is what your mind has built up is lunacy, and it's crazy. Because, first of all, consistency is hard. Second of all, human emotions and feelings and judgment are never ever a straight line. It's always going to be prone to circumstances, situations, timing, a lot of different factors. And what you requested or what you expected last year is different than this year of that person, or that's how it should be in your mind. But of course, because as people, we tend to try to look at things in a positive way. And trust me, I'm a big positive person. I think it's a very important thing a person should have, positivity. But I think positivity shouldn't clash with reality, shouldn't clash with assessing a situation that can be good or harmful to you. You could argue that expectation is a form of trust, which I think is a beautiful thing. When somebody really trusts you and puts their faith in you, um, it's such an enriching feeling knowing that, um, it's I would consider it probably one of the highest forms of compliment when someone fully trusts you. Why? Because they understand who you are as a person. They understand your spirit. They understand what you stand for. They understand your values, and they understand your principle. And they decided based on all those variables that you are a trustworthy person in a way. That means you are capable of achieving the expectations. But what those people fail to understand is the assessment of expectations and the measurement of where you think an expectation should be expected, and if that person is actually capable of it or not. And that's what's missing on that. Because again, I've said this earlier in my earlier video, human beings are prone to making mistakes. Human beings are not infallible. Human beings are not perfect, which means you're going to make bad judgment all the time. You're going to make bad decisions all the time. You're going to fail at some point. And that puts the person in a tough position when you're being looked at as somebody who is trustworthy, or how you have high expectations on. Nobody is perfect, and nobody can always be there day in, day out. It's literally impossible, especially in the fast-paced life that we're living right now. People have a lot of their own things that they got to take care of. People are in their own world, they're in their own zone. It's not easy. It's not a pleasant situation right now for a lot of people in the world. So it's not something that you should be expecting all the time for somebody to be fulfilling those expectations from you. It's literally impossible. And I think it's quite naive if you have expectations of people and you think people are able to fulfill all the time. It's naive, big time. And not to say you're stupid, not to say that you are dumb or gullible in any way, but there is a sense of naivety because you're somebody who doesn't understand that other circumstances can affect if those expectations, for sure. In a way, I get it. You interact with somebody for such a long time, you establish a strong bond, you interact, you laugh, you enjoy the good times, you have amazing moments. The natural next step is to have expectations. And by the way, it's not like you plan for these things. They naturally build up in your mind. They naturally start forming an idea that this person is trustworthy, an idea that this person is expectation worthy. And you start building this in your head every single day, after every single moment, all the years that you've been together with that person, friend, family, whoever they are. So I get it. It's something that sometimes subconsciously happens. It's not a situation where you strategize and mapped out the framework of it. It just happens naturally. I mean, how can you even live like that? You can't. It's impossible. You cannot project what you think is expected on other people. You just can't. I personally think somebody should live by their own moral compass. They should live by their own expectations, what they think they can achieve, what they think is their own expectations, and what are their own standards, and what they can do and what they can't do. You can't apply that on others. I know it's actually hard. I get it. It's hard because you care for the person. It's very hard to explain, but to really try to simplify it, it's a natural bond that has been cultivated and that grows, and you want to enrich that bond, and you want to take it to other levels because you know that person can have your back. It's such a beautiful feeling when you have somebody that you know will always have your back and always do things that you expect them to do no matter what. But at some point, something is going to happen, and not because the other person doesn't want to do it, and not because and then because you didn't have faith in that person. It's simply hard to fulfill someone's expectations every single time. I came across this amazing quote by Christopher Miller, where he basically says, "Low expectations is the key to happiness." Simple. if you have low expectations, because you can never have expectations, so you can have zero expectations. But if you have low expectations from any situation, from any matter, or any circumstance that you're going through, you're going to be much less stressed. You're not going to worry too much about it. You're going to believe in the power of, I can control what I can control, and I leave the rest to destiny, God, whatever you believe in. I believe in God. I leave it in God's hand, and I don't stress about it. I don't worry about it. And that helps me have a very peaceful mind and a peaceful life. Why? Because you can only focus on what you can do, and your environment and your surroundings and your mind isn't really connected or affected by other people. And just to be clear, what I'm talking about is not the professional life, because in the professional life, you're expected to fulfill those potentials, or those expectations, because you're being paid for it. It's a different story completely. But I'm talking about your personal life, when people expect things from you, and or you expect things from others, and you expect them to fulfill it. I mean, you can't attach how you feel in that moment, or your circumstances are in those moments with those situations. It doesn't work, or it shouldn't be that way. So, what am I trying to say at the end, right? I'm just trying to say, and this is my message to you, and I think my message to most people: keep your expectations always low. Now, look, I might be preaching all of this, but I myself, I have expectations from certain people till this day. I do. It's there. It happens naturally. You connect with somebody. You develop expectations, but at the same time, I'm understanding myself more day by day. I'm understanding who I am as a person, and how I can de-associate myself from the effects of those expectations not being fulfilled. I sort of understand that not everything is gonna go my way all the time, 100%, and I'm not gonna get what I want. Of course not. So and it doesn't work like that. So those realities always come in my mind whenever I try to have place expectations on others. So I always look and assess the situation, and more importantly, I try to take out of it the emotional, element, and the decision making that I think of whenever I have expectations on someone. Like I said, just having low expectations, understanding how it doesn't really, or it shouldn't really impact your life, is probably the best outcome. And I think people should be aware more about this, and should be really kind of like more comfortable with that idea, because ultimately you're not bound by someone's um, belief in you, or you're not basically affected by someone's actions towards you, or other situations that you were hoping it should be in your favor. I hope that made sense. By the way, always keep your expectations low, for a beautiful life, for a healthy life, for a peaceful life. Guys, like I said, if you like the content, please subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you next time.